Hi, Lucy. Good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm also very well. Thank you very much. So, Lucy, thank you so much for joining me today. I noticed that on LinkedIn, you've created some posts around running events sustainably and what you look for in order to be able to do that. And I'm really interested to find out more about that. So, can you tell me a bit more?
Yes, of course. Yeah, it's something that I suppose is obviously sustainable events has been around for quite a little while now, but it's very much coming into the forefront of everyone's minds, especially I think through the pandemic. People are wanting to reduce their impact on the environment, create a better one for us, and also increase their impact on the communities around them. And I think with the whole importance of communities in the pandemic, I think that's had a big play on that as well. For me, I think very much for me, it's the creating a better environment for the future. And I think it's a very important priority for events. I'm definitely finding that with some of my clients now, it is starting to factor into their thoughts, which obviously is hugely important. For me, when I'm looking at venues, I'm very much looking at, I suppose, very much on the energy side of things, how they are utilising their energies, well, lowering their carbon footprints and everything. And also another important thing is their suppliers, using local community suppliers that can provide, say for instance, catering. It's nourishing food, it's healthy. You know exactly where it's been sourced. You can tell your clients that and the attendees. I think that's really important. Also, obviously, water is such a we need to save our water. And so how many times at venues are taps left on, or they've got they haven't got the things in place to reduce that. Also the amount of waste come up at events. Gosh, it's amazing how much waste is reaps from them, and that is really important. Having recyclable bins, but also not just normal recycling, compost bins, and where does that all go? Because so much of that can go and be put back into the environment and increase the ecology. So for me, it's that whole kind of thing, and it's really interesting now. I'm being more aware of it, is actually going and seeing venues that it plays such a big thing, and they're doing so much.
There's a lot to think about by the sounds of things.
Yes. Yeah.
I find it interesting that you're saying the clients that are coming to you are starting to think about it, look at it in their brief as far as an event is concerned. Is that corporates that are driving that, or is that private individuals as well?
It is actually, funny enough, mainly corporates. I mean, much of my business is with corporates rather than private individuals. It's obviously the smallest things, like just having spaces that have lots of natural daylight, so you don't need to use electric light. Right. One little thing, a few clients over the past few years having their floral decorations. How it's such a shame that so many are just put in the bin. So how can we use those and recycle them? Could we take them to a nearby hospital or old people's home or places like that? Which I think, and it's what I love is the fact that they are thinking about it.
Yes.
It's not me suggesting it. So it's obviously playing on their minds, which is really nice to see. There are so many other things that they could do and think about for their events, but those are little starting points. And I feel that as event planners, we can educate them and start suggesting that right at the beginning of planning the event, so that have they thought about this? And you don't have to do it in a forceful way and say, right, this is what we are going to do, but have you thought? And I think by doing that and educating them about how sustainability can play can be an important factor in their events, and they can contribute so much to both the environment and the community, that I think, you know, fingers crossed, in years to come, sustainability is the way forward.
Yes, and I guess for the corporates with a CSR program, it will be key. But also, I imagine that if you're an employee of an organisation that looks at sustainability and builds it into things like events, then that's a great positive as well. And I think the younger generation are probably more aware and cognizant.
Very much so. Yeah, and it's very interesting actually working, because obviously I work with a lot of different industries as well, and obviously, yeah, the ages that I work with again vary, and it is very much obviously the young people that are far more, they're the ones that are bringing it up and seeing what can be done, even from, you know, now it's very much heavy on the catering side of things, you know, and it's not just the food that's being served, but also what the you know, the items of which are being used to serve the food. Are they recyclable? Have they come from, you know, are they made from recyclable goods and products? Which is obviously fantastic, and you know, hopefully that can trickle down through the company. Yeah.
And so when you're looking for a venue, you've touched on a few things that you would look for. How do you go about sourcing those venues? Do you have favourites that you use, or are you constantly looking for new venues to work?
I must admit, I am constantly looking. There are a few out there at the moment that, you know, but there are always surprises around the corner that I've obviously not heard of, or have you. So yeah, as I mentioned, there are a few that I have known about for the last couple of years. But like you say, I mean, I think you guys have got a few on your books that I am yet to visit, and really keen to. I've always found it amazing going and visiting sustainable venues and just finding out sometimes how much sustainability is at the core. And you know, it's not just a touch, it's pretty much they've thought about the whole, how the structure's built, from the running and the energy, and how it affects the community. And it's really impressive what people have done. So yeah, to gain that.
And so, and I think there's a misconception sometimes, isn't there, that being green or having sustainable credentials, or looking to behave in a sustainable way has an impact on budget, is that the case? Or
I wouldn't say so hugely. Obviously, sometimes to get, you know, to make it a bit more sustainable and look into alternative products that are perhaps more recyclable, or, you know, better ways of doing things, then yes, there is a slight increase in cost. But I think on the whole, what you're going to be providing your attendees with, and the general advantages and benefits outweigh those. The long-term benefits, you know, you can walk away with feeling that you've contributed so much, whether it be to a community or the environment. And I think as a company, and if you're doing a team event, the achievement in that in itself outweighs, you know, maybe a small increase in budget, really.
Sure. And I think as an industry, events is creative, and I guess the last few months has shown just how creative people can be, and you know, the switch to virtual, which in itself I suppose could be considered to be an element going forward of sustainability, and the fact that you can have attendees in person, but you can also have a lot more people attend online in this kind of forum. You've talked about catering. Have you seen creative ways in which people have been sustainable or adopted sustainable practices?
It has been, I think it's been more on the way of how products are being packaged, obviously on the recyclable products and everything. But I have also learned a lot more about what they're actually doing. So say with, I don't know, let's say for instance, coffee. So for every pack of coffee or cup of coffee that someone purchases, then they, the company that's providing that, they are going out and planting a tree in Africa where it's required. And okay, that's quite an extreme example. There are other projects that are happening closer to home over here in the UK. But I think people are very much more conscious of that. And I think it's great to see at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think you've touched on coffee and thinking of all the little pods that are recyclable, but then there are people looking at ways of making that even more so. And so, it is thinking about that whole supply chain from beginning to end, and kind of what happens at the end of an event, exactly. And wastage being a big
it's not just at that event part or even on the day. It's the backlog and the back run of everything that goes into putting on that event.
Sure.
And there's a lot to think about, especially on the supplier side of things.
But then I guess lots of opportunities as well.
Absolutely.
So if you had a couple of top tips for a venue looking at kind of considering how they can be more sustainable, what are there things that you would say, well, these are relatively easy to implement and actually are things that corporate clients look for?
I would say first things would be the recyclable element. It's so easy to get bins involved, have recyclable bins for food wastage and compost. Those are, and also again on the energy is using, it's very easy just to go and put low energy light bulbs in and LEDs. Okay, it might cost a little bit more to put those in, but it's such an easy thing to do and implement. Also, I think if you can use as locally sourced food as possible, that makes a big thing. And it's something that you can tell everyone attending your venue, where it gives a little bit more of a story, and it gives a bit more personality to your venue as well. And then also another big thing I think is water conservation. Putting in low flow taps is quite a big thing. And just again, some people are still on paper towels and all of that. If you could put in low energy dryers for your hands, they're all very easy, simple things. I haven't touched on any of the big stuff only because I'm just thinking of people that haven't necessarily got those things in place. So I think those are very easy to implement and goes a long way. Yes,
I mean, I guess we all need to start somewhere, and every small step makes a difference. And so you're seeing sustainability and in its relation to events being something for the future.
Very much so.
What's your overall hope from an events point of view?
I mean, I would love there to be more sustainable venues, and sustainability being key at all venues. Some venues obviously are very old in their building and structure, so it's very difficult to put in structural sustainable parts to them. But I think wherever possible is venues at least being able to put in perhaps the things that I've just mentioned before. If they could put in the easy, simple bits, at least they're each playing their role, and can each contribute. And I think as time goes on, more and more venues will become more and more sustainable. And also it's education to the event planners of companies. And I think it is going to be a huge thing, very much as we, obviously with the climate change and everything being such an enormous part of our thinking now. I think that's going to have a huge effect on sustainability and the thoughts behind it, if it hasn't already done so. But I think some people are still needing to get to that point. So yeah, fingers crossed. I would love it. And let's say 5 years time, I mean, okay, that sounds a very short period of time, and it probably is, but it would be wonderful. Absolutely great.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that education piece is, that you mentioned as well. The more venues that do it, the more clients that ask about the credentials of a venue, that then it has that snowball effect. And it would be amazing to think that in the future, you know, every venue has got some sustainability credentials in place, as many as they can implement. That would be fantastic, and what a difference.
Yeah, and it's also with the venues having those credentials and things in place, it then highlights the people attending their venue. So it's that full circle. You're highlighting the sustainable elements of your venue, and people will go away thinking, yes, perhaps how can I do that at home, or how can I use that for my next event? And it's all that, it's making people aware and putting it into their awareness. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, I hope that your wish comes true, that that more venues look at sustainability. It's certainly something that's very important to us at Secret Spaces, and is something that we have very much on our agenda in talking to our venues. So it's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. And it's been great.
I look forward to talking some more in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Susan.